But before we go into it, I have few questions which I think uh, were asked by some doctor from Thailand. Many of them are already self-answered if you go through first two aphorisms very closely, very deeply. The first question is how homeopathy can cure degenerative diseases or complicated chronic diseases in the sick. Any limitations? How homeopathy can cure degenerative diseases or complicated chronic diseases in the sick. When you are focusing on the sick, when you are focusing on the cure of the sick, all the other things are basically, diminished in the value. Whether what kind of disease he or she is having, what kind of symptoms he or she is having. The limitation which you are asking me, okay, a homeopath might have a home limitation, but the homeopathy does not have any limitations. I have seen that already in my practice, in practice of Dr. Praful Vijayakar, in my father's practice, that there is no limitation. If you put your mind to just one thing, that you have to just look at the sick and not the sickness. You have to cure the sick, not the sickness. Then everything basically finds a perspective. Everything seems to be easy. But when you will put very big names of diseases, that Duchenne muscular dystrophy, some Down syndrome, some other syndrome, some cancer, then obviously you will, because there are things which are already defined about these kind of diseases, that they are incurable, they don't have any kind of this thing. It does not matter what kind of disease is there. I've seen agenesis of lung of a child who got better. I have seen the congenital pathologies of the heart of patients who have gone well. I have seen person dying with cancer who got well. I have person seen who was in a deathbed because of the organ failure, and that person came back with the help of homeopathy. So when you see such cases, then you know that homeopathy does not have any limitations. But yes, because of the knowledge, because of the way we practice, a homeopath may have many kind of limitations. Please explain the word permanent cure for the sick who has degenerative disease or complicated chronic diseases. This is basically a kind of, I would say, theoretical question that define permanent cure. Permanent cure means permanent cure when a person, the ideal cure which Dr. Henneman has defined, as we have talked about it last time also, it means basically the removal of disease from all its sphere, wherever the disease was, the removal from there, from all the parts, and that also that removal should be permanent. That means the permanent cure. Now, what kind of disease there is, what kind of other treatment has gone through, that has also been told by Dr. Henneman in Aphorism 76. The answer to that thing has also been given. When we will go there, we will talk about it. Okay, so we have to see on a if there is a real life scenario of some patient, then we can talk about it. But otherwise, I think the meaning of permanent cure is very much simple and given. What is difference in the word restore from the treat? It is very completely two different words. Restore is restore. The man before getting disease, how he was. We have to restore the man to that part. Before getting disease, the man was healthy. So when we say restore the sick, means we have to restore the sick to health. The whole word is restore the sick to health, means completely we have to bring him back without any kind of complication, without any kind of, the symptoms which has been given by treatment, they should not be there. Treating is a very vague term. You can just treat with any kind of thing, and treating does not mean that the patient is restored or cured. Treating is an ongoing process. Restore is our destination. Restore is where we have to take the patient. Conventional medicine now is much different from that of Hahnemann's period. There are systematic ways to collect information of treatment, result, outcome with less bias. These patients' outcome is also real experience, though measured in scale form. So it seems that conventional medicine now is not conjectural, that is based on opinion. Let me know, there are many doctors here. How has the today's medicine advanced? From the time period of Dr. Hahnemann, how has today's medicine advanced? The conventional medicine now is much different from that of Hahnemann's period. It is not at all different, it is same. There is no difference. Skin disease is still incurable. Allergies are still incurable. Diabetes is still incurable. Blood pressure is still incurable. Hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism incurable. Cancers are still incurable. Any kind of disease, it is still incurable. So how has it advanced? There is no as such advancement. Very clearly, Dr. Hahnemann has written in the introduction. That is why I have that the medicine is basically based on conjecture. Why he said that it is based on conjecture? Because there is no particular principles on which the medicine is based. So today, even today, there are no particular principles. There are no particular principles on which the conventional system is basically based. Like we are telling that in homeopathy, there are given principles which one has to follow. There is principle of dynamism. There is principle of individuality. There is principle of similia similibus currenter. We have to follow these principles. There are late principle. There is principle of the natural cure of disease. So we have to follow those principles. So still, even today, there are no written or given guidance or principles on which this medicine is basically based. First thing. Second thing, the advancement should be in the cure. Still today, all these and diseases are there and there is no cure to be found. Thirdly, the advancement is basically done in the mechanical part of the science. So that is the advancement of physics, not of the conventional medicine. If there have been some chemicals which have been found to make some reagents to find something or to, that is the advancement of chemistry and physics, not of conventional medicine. If some robotic part has been developed to make some to do some surgery, so it is a advancement of physics that now even a less skillful doctor who does not have much skill can perform a surgery. So the physics has advanced, the biomechanics has advanced, but it is not the conventional medicine which has advanced. It is same as it was in the time of Dr. Hahnemann. It is same as it is today. There are no new medicines which have been found to cure something. Treating is a different thing. And treating also in the same way which Dr. Hahnemann has written in the Organon. We will come to that part. Why Dr. Hahnemann gave the name allopathy. The allopathic term, it was basically coined or given by Dr. Hahnemann. There was no such term before Dr. Hahnemann's time. So this was basically given by Dr. Hahnemann. And allos or allopathy basically meant that you are giving a medicine to cure something without even knowing how that medicine is basically acting on that part. So that is the conjectural thing. What is more conjecture? Even today, the medicines are working like that. I was giving you, I think last time also we were talking about the how the teneligliptin. So teneligliptin is basically working on the intestine for a disease which is basically of the pancreas. So it is basically altering the structural part of the intestines, and intestine which was completely okay. So to control the diabetes, diabetes is a disease of pancreas. Yes, we know that it is basically a disease of pancreas. So to cure that disease, to cure that thing, the medicine is basically acting on the intestines, altering the structure of the intestines. So this is what Dr. Henneman was talking about, that it is basically a conjectural science. Not sorry, this is basically a conjectural art, not science. Because it is basically based on conjecture. Okay, if you give this thing and that thing and this thing, and this will be the result, without even knowing that whether it is going to happen or not. And moreover, there is no result. The same issues are still we are facing. Okay. So I think I have answered all the questions which were sent to me. So we'll start with our lecture. Okay. So we have uh, done till aphorism 2. So the first aphorism is the mission of the physician, what he has to do to cure the sick to the health. So in the first aphorism, Dr. Henneman basically um, puts a baseline to the thinking of a homeopath. What is that baseline is? To think about the patient, to think about the sick. Don't think about what he is suffering from. Don't think what which organ you have to preserve, which this parameter you have to bring down, or no. The sick is the most important part of physician's mission. He has to cure the sick to health, as it is termed, sick as a whole, not some one part of the sick. Then aphorism 2 very clearly tells how what kind of cure it is which should be termed. The termed cure. Cure means rapid and complete removal of the disease from the sick, from all the parts, not from one some particular part. Like today, a patient came to me that he has this increased urea levels and increased creatinine levels and no other symptoms. No symptoms as such. Just creatinine levels were, I think, around 1.7 or 8, and the uric acid on the urea, they were increased. So he was worried about his kidney health. So now, should those parameters be the measure for me, or should the patient be? What I have to cure? Patient had many other symptoms which he did not consider to be of the disease, but I can see that these are the symptoms that he is suffering from. For example, there was a very characteristic symptom. He said that whenever I'm in stress, like whenever I am, going through something, some financial stress comes, some family stress comes, some office or work related stress comes, he starts feeling sleepy. He says that I feel sleepy and then I have to go to sleep. But that was not an issue for him, not a very big issue. But I can see that what this is. Usually, what happens when someone is in a stressed stage? Okay, our sympathetic system is in a heightened stage. Our sympathetic system is basically working at a good pace. So becomes difficult for us to sleep. Why? Because whenever you're in a stress state, your body basically releases cortisol, stress hormone, cortisol. Now, this cortisol is basically irrever- reversely proportionate to the secretion of melatonin, which means basically whenever the cortisol will increase, the secretion of melatonin will decrease. Now, melatonin is your sleep hormone. Whenever you go to sleep in the night, the melatonin starts increasing and it takes you into the sleep. From the awaking state, it takes you into the state of sleep and dreams. So, whenever the cortisol will increase, the melatonin automatically starts decreasing. So this is basic physiology. This is what happens. That is why when we are in stressed stage, we are not able to sleep, and it is also needed because of our sympathetic activity. Less sleep means we have more time to find solution to whatever the stressful situation there is. But in this patient, a completely different kind of phenomena is happening. Completely different, completely opposite. So now I like we have so many times discussed that when there is something strange, characteristic thing happening in the patient, you must stop there and think about it. So why this is happening with this patient? That whenever he's in a stressed stage, he suddenly goes into sleep. He is not able to think for a long time. He's not able to find a solution to such thing. That is because he does not have even that much of energy to so that the sympathetic activity can go on for some time. As soon as the sympathetic activity starts, the energy depletes, it combusts, and he has to go into the parasympathetic activity to regain the lost energy. So even for few minutes, he is not able to remain in a stage of sympathetic activity because of the lack of energy in the system. So now we have come to this part. We have come to this understanding that okay, this is a characteristic symptom. And this is a characteristic symptom which basically describes the whole individual. It describes the sick, not the sickness. The patient has come with the problem of increased creatinine level, increased urea, and that is not very much increased. It is not very much increased that there is some uremic state going on of the mind. The patient is more worried about that thing or levels. So that is why he's worried about those things. But this symptom basically tells us about the sick, not the sickness. So the symptoms which tell us about the sick, the patient, the individual, that how he is different from all the people or all the other patients, those symptoms start becoming important. Okay. So let's start with the aphorism 3. If the physician clearly perceives what is to be cured in diseases, that is to say, in every individual case of disease. Very important word, Dr. Hahnemann, because like I told you when we started also, that Dr. Hahnemann, he has used words very, very, very carefully. So if the physician clearly perceives, the word is perceives. Perceives is not just seeing, not just looking at something. It is looking, seeing, and understanding in depth. So what the physician has to do first is to perceive what is to be cured in diseases. If the physician clearly perceives what is to be cured in diseases, that is to say, in every individual case of disease. Okay. And that also in every individual case of disease. If you have 10 cases in front of you, you have to see in every individual case of disease what is to be cured. Knowledge of disease and indication. Okay. So we have to have that knowledge of disease and the indication of the disease. When a patient comes in front of you, he's telling you the symptom, I'm having lots of thirst, I go to urine frequently, I eat a lot also, I'm losing weight, I feel weak. So, these are the indications basically of the diabetes. You can make that out. But now we have to see that in this patient who might be suffering from diabetes, what is to be cured? Because diabetes is not to be cured. We have to cure the sick. So, what is there which is indicative of cure? Which are the characteristic symptoms? Which are the symptoms which individualizes this patient? In every individual case of disease, we have to perceive that. See, the difference between the homeopathic practice of medicine and allopathic practice of medicine, there is a very, very clear this thing. In allopathy, diagnosis is very important for giving the medicine. Like I told you, these symptoms, an allopathic doctor will see the symptoms. Okay, he will tell the patient to go for a blood checkup. When he sees that the diabetic sugar levels are increased, he will say that you are suffering from diabetes, and he will write down the medicine for the diabetes. So for him, the common symptoms of the medicine of the disease are very important, because these are the symptoms which basically help the allopath to make a diagnosis, and after that diagnosis give a medicine which is basically for that diagnosis. In homeopathy, it is completely opposite. The common symptoms are not at all important for us, because we are not here to make a diagnosis. It doesn't matter to us whether he's suffering from diabetes or not suffering from diabetes. But if the patient is saying that I am feeling weak, then there is something which is making him weak. I can understand that thing. For homeopath, the uncommon symptoms are very much important. This symptom, this sleep symptom, for example, that whenever he gets stressed, he goes to sleep. Now, this is of the least important for an allopath. Even if you go and tell an allopathy doctor that whenever I am stressed, I go to sleep, he will have a look at you that why you are telling me this kind of symptom, and he will go back to writing his prescription. Because this symptom is not at all important for him. Any symptom which is basically out of the commonality of the disease is not at all important for the allopath, but it is more very, very, very much important for the homeopath, because we are not here to make any kind of, because our medicine is not based on diagnosis. Our medicine is basically based on the law of individuality. How a sick is individual, and he is different from all the other sick patients. That is where we are basically looking for. That is a baseline of thinking of a homeopath. Whenever a patient is sitting in front of you, the whole mind, the whole practice is about knowing what is different in this patient than all the patient that I have seen. What is different in him? So all the symptoms which are common to the disease, we just basically keep them out of our this analytical sheet. So to know that what we have to cure, we have to understand very minutely which symptoms not to take and which symptoms to take. So for that, this knowledge of disease and indication is very much important. If we clearly perceive what is curative in the medicines, that is to say in each individual medicines. Now, the second knowledge which a physician should have is to know what is curative in his medicines, the medicines which he is applying. What are the effects of these medicines on the individuals, on a human being? So those curative powers of the medicine, the knowledge of medicinal powers is very much important for a physician to know, which we can go through from the materia medica. And if he knows how to adapt according to clearly defined principles. Again, You will see this thing coming again and again and again throughout the organon, where he will tell you to go according to the clearly defined principles. Nowhere in the practice of medicine of allopathic book you will find this thing there. There are no defined principles because there are no defined principles. Organon is practice of medicine for a homeopath. How to practice the medicine. So similarly, when you go through an allopathic practice, practice, because in our syllabus, when we do BHMS, the homeopathic degree in India, we have to go through that. And I have gone through that very minutely because I wanted to be very clear before speaking in front of anybody that whether this thing is right or not. And it is very right that there are no defined principles in the practice of medicine of allopathy. There are no defined principles. But in homeopathy, in Organon, you will find this thing very, you know, coming again and again and again if he knows how to adapt according to clearly defined principles. Okay, so then after getting the knowledge of disease and after getting the knowledge of medicinal powers, one has to know how I have to adapt. I'm sorry, how I have to adapt according to these clearly defined principles. What is curative in the medicines to what he has discovered to be undoubtedly morbid in the patient. And thank you. So, after getting the knowledge of medicine, after getting the knowledge of disease, after not getting the knowledge of individual case of the person in front of us, we have to understand how now I have to use my knowledge of medicine and to adapt it as well as in respect to the suitability of the medicine, most appropriate according to its mode of action to the case before him, choice of the remedy, the medicine indicated, as also in respect to the exact mode of preparation and quantity of it required, proper dose, and the proper period for repeating the dose. So now here Dr. Henneman is basically telling us that, okay, the first is the mission of the physician to cure the sick to health. Second, what is the ideal cure? How the cure should be done. Third is basically the knowledge of the physician. What the physician should know in order to cure, as it is termed in the aphorism 2. So, in these knowledges, the first is the knowledge of the disease and the indication, how to understand what is to be cured in each individual case of disease, to find what is uncommon, to find what is characteristic. Then the knowledge of the medicines, the medicinal power, which medicine has the power to of medicines have the power to cure what kind of symptoms in the patient. Then how to basically adapt oneself, adapt myself, my knowledge according to the defined principles. Then how the proper dose should be made, what should be the mode of the action of the medication, and what is the proper period for repeating the dose. So a physician should know about all these things about which Dr. Hahnemann is going to tell in the whole organon. But this is just the basic things which the Dr. Hahnemann is trying to tell us to make ourselves ready to make so that we can understand what we have to go and we have to understand in the coming effort. If finally he knows the obstacles to recovery in each case and is aware how to remove them. And then finally, if he knows the obstacles to the recovery, he should also know that what kind of the things in the surrounding of the patient, in the diet, in the regimen, in his day-to-day life, what kind of the things can provide basically the obstacle to the recovery. And he should also guide the patient to, kind of remain away from these kind of things, any kind of stresses, any kind of undue pressure, okay, any kind of things in the diet which might affect his health, so that the restoration may be permanent. Only then the restoration can be permanent, when we have all these kind of knowledges, when we know all these things. Now, many times I have had discussion with doctors. Like I told you that Dr. Henneman uses words very carefully. So many doctors have, we have talked with them that we have also studied materia medica. We have also learned the medicine, and we have also gone through the things. But still, sometimes, the kind of cure which we are, referring to, or which we are talking about, is yet not possible. The word Dr. Hahnemann has used is knowledge. Knowledge. Knowledge comes from knowing something. When we are going through Organon, like we are going through right now, I am telling you about these things, about whatever is the understanding of these things. Don't confuse this thing with knowledge. This is not knowledge. This is just simple information which is being passed to you. Whenever you are reading something, it is just some simple information which is being passed to you. It is not knowledge. Knowledge is completely different thing. Knowledge comes from knowing. When you know, when you know about something. For example, I told you that, okay, Ignitia have this kind of constitution. This is an information which I have given to you. For me, it can be knowledge, because from my experience, from whatever I have gone through, I have seen, might be knowing this thing. But when I am telling it to someone, it is basically information which has to transform into knowledge after we have gone through practice over that thing. So here the Dr. Hahnemann is not using the word information of disease, information of medicinal power, okay, information of the obstacles of the cure. No, it is about knowing which comes from the experience. So that is why many times I have seen, even in in our colleges, the people who used to be the toppers, in the colleges, they did not turn out very well in the practice, in the homeopathic practice later on, because they have all the information which there could be, but very less knowledge. The information could not transform itself into the knowledge. So it is very important that once you are informed about something, it comes upon us. When we receive some information, it comes upon us to basically change that thing into the knowledge by practicing on it, by taking our experience out of it, by taking some truth out of it, and then transforming it into the knowledge. And once it starts becoming knowledge, then you can see that the wonders, they start happening, because then it will start basically coming out of you, not from somewhere else. Because till it is coming from somewhere, it is all information. So it is very important to know the obstacles to recovery in each case, and is aware how to remove them, so that the restoration may be permanent. And then he understands how to treat judiciously and rationally, and he is a true practitioner of the healing art. So when he has the knowledge of all these things, when he starts knowing about all these things, and he starts applying these things on the patient, and start restoring them into the permanent health, then he knows how to treat judiciously and rationally. and he's a true practitioner of the healing art. So he's likewise a preserver of health if he knows the things that derange health and cause disease and how to remove them from the persons in health. So even with the okay, he's a physician, he has to cure. The mission of the physician is to cure, but after curing he is also a preserver of the health. How he is a preserver of health? If he knows the things that derange the health, if he knows what deranges the health, and he can guide his patients, he can guide people around him that these are the things which basically derange your health and cause the disease, and he tells them how to remove them from the persons in health, the people who are healthy, how they can avoid these kind of things which basically derange the health. Then he also becomes a preserver of health. Aphorism 5. Now comes the next point, a brief given by Dr. Henneman. Okay, now we have talked about the knowledges, now we have talked about the preserving of the health. So next is the useful to the physician in assisting him to cure. Now, what are the things which can be useful for the physician to cure a patient? Useful to the physician in assisting him to cure are the particulars of the most probable exciting cause of the acute disease. Acute disease, whenever we are working on an acute case, what is the most important thing is the most probable exciting cause. You can understand the value of this symptom from just this point, that the first thing when the Dr. Henneman has started talking about cure, especially of the acute disease, the first thing which he has given importance to is the most probable exciting cause of the acute disease. How the acute disease started, what was the cause? Physical causes, the mental causes, some natural causes. What kind of the cause was there which basically excited the acute disease? As also the most significant points in the whole history of the chronic disease to enable him to discover its fundamental cause. And in the chronic diseases, we have to find the significant points in the whole history. Significant points, significant, important characteristic points. They are very important. So in this brief, this is not the only thing which is, which we have to find. Okay, we have to find, but this is just a brief, a small brief in what is important in the acute diseases and what is important in the chronic diseases when we are going through the case history, case taking of these two cases. Because this is the two major categories of the cases, the acutes and the chronics. So he has given just a very small outline, a brief on what is important in these two cases. So in the acute cases, in the acute diseases, the most probable exciting cause, because the exciting cause has just happened. It has given or excited the acute diseases. So because it has just happened and it has given rise to a new phenomena. So understanding the exciting cause and taking it for the prescription becomes very much important. And in the chronic diseases, taking the most significant points out of the whole history so that it helps him to discover its fundamental cause, which is generally due to a chronic miasm. So we have to find the fundamental cause, the cause which is basically based on the chronic miasm in the cases which are chronic in nature. So in these investigations, whenever we are going through this investigation, we are taking the case, the ascertainable physical constitution of the patient. What kind of physical constitution of the patient is? Now, many times we basically ignore this part, which is very important. The physical constitution of the patient, the build of the patient, tall, short, lean, obese, what kind of complexion he is having, what kind of bone structure, muscular structure they are having. We, this becomes a very important part because many times These kind of things basically give away the medicine. There is medicine which is hidden in this physical constitution of the patient, especially when the disease is chronic. His moral and intellectual character. What kind of moral character he is having? What kind of intellect he is having? These kind of investigations become very important in finding a remedy. His occupation, mode of living, what kind of life he is living, what occupation he has been in, what are his habits, his social and domestic relations, what kind. That is why we ask about that. How are you in your family? How is your relationships in your office? How is your relationship with your friends, with your relatives? His age, sexual function, etc., to be taken into consideration. So when we are taking the case, any acute or chronic case, these kind of things, they become very important to take into consideration. And the word Dr. Henneman has initially used is in these investigations. We are basically kind of investigating a case like a police officer. We have to know about the deepest of the things which we can try to understand about the patient. When he has written his social and domestic relations, as much as we can, we need to ask about those things. What kind of life he has been living, what kind of people he has around him. Okay. So these things become important because this tells us about the individuality of the patient, what kind of things he likes, what are the things he's sensitive to. Because when we will go to aphorism 31, we will try to understand this thing, that how the susceptibility basically develops, the sensitivity, susceptibility, and the disposition. So it is very important to understand the disposition of the patient, what kind of disposition he is having. Then comes the aphorism 6, the unprejudiced observer. Unprejudiced means a person who's basically free of prejudice. Prejudice means a person who is basically free of any kind of about anything. He is not pre-thinking anything, that thing. So the unprejudiced observer, well aware of the futility of transcendental practice, which can receive no confirmation from experience, be his powers of penetration ever so great, takes note of nothing in every individual disease. So when a person is unprejudiced observer, it is why it is important for us, for a homeopath, to be unprejudiced observer. The first thing is the observer. When you are sitting in front of the patient, you are observing the patient. You are looking at him and looking through him. You are trying to understand every smallest of the detail of his life, many things which he has said and many things which he has left unsaid. You are trying to, ask those things and understand those things. So unprejudiced means when you are free from the bias. If you are already biased, okay, this person, when a person enters inside and something stucks in your mind about that person, that he might be this kind of person or he might be that kind of person, without even you know going through the case, without even talking with that man, without even talking with that uh, patient or the attendants of the patient, when you start becoming prejudiced about it, when you start becoming biased, your whole thinking can basically go towards the speculations. You are speculating what might have happened or what kind of this person might be, without even getting the basic information. So the first thing, why the unprejudiced observer, he is already aware of this thing, that if I become prejudiced, I will become speculative, and this will basically impact with the case in front of me. So he knows about the futility. the uselessness of these kind of speculation which receive no confirmation from the experience. So anything which cannot be confirmed by the experience, that is a speculation. We are just speculating, we are just thinking, we are just theorizing it. Any kind of theorizing, it cannot basically have confirmation from the experience. So an unprejudiced observer is basically aware of this uselessness. So when a person becomes unprejudiced observer, be his powers of penetration ever so great. Now, the more you are unprejudiced, the more your powers of penetration will become great. And they will become so great that he takes note of nothing in every individual disease except the changes in the health of the body and of the mind. Nothing else except what has changed in the health of the body and the mind, the morbid phenomena, the accidents, and the symptoms, which can be perceived externally by the means of the senses, which can be understood, which can be seen externally by the means of the senses. That is to say, he notices only the deviations from the former healthy state of the now diseased individual, which are felt by the patient himself, remarked by those around him, and observed by the physician. So he takes the note of the deviations from the former healthy state, a healthy state where the patient was, and now the state, disease state where he is. He takes note of all those things, all that morbid phenomena that has happened. He takes those that information by asking the patient, because the patient has felt those things, by asking the attendants, and by observing himself. So all these perceptible signs represent the disease in its whole extent. So all these signs which he has collected, which this unprejudiced observer has collected from the patient, from the attendant, and from his own observation, they basically represent the disease in its whole extent, and that is together they form the true and only conceivable portrait of the disease. So he takes those symptoms, all those morbid phenomena, accidents, which he has perceived by his senses, which he has listened to, which he has seen, which he has observed, which have been felt by the patient, told by the attendants, and he writes them down, he notes them down, he collects all those symptoms, and these symptoms are basically the portrait of the disease. This is what the disease is. All those symptoms. That so the disease is not something which is labeled when it is diagnosed. No, disease is something which you have taken, um, all those collection, the collection of the symptoms which you have taken, that is known as the portrait of the disease, the picture of the disease. So footnote to aphorism 6. I know not, therefore, how it was possible for physicians at the sick bed to allow themselves to suppose that without most carefully tending to the symptoms and being guided by them in the treatment they ought to seek and could discover only in the hidden and unknown interior what there was to be cured in the disease. So now Dr. Henneman is saying that I'm so surprised that how it is possible for the physicians when they visit some sick bed, when the person visits some person who is suffering from some kind of sickness, without carefully attending to the symptoms, without asking the symptoms, without like, okay, what is the symptom? Fever, okay, okay, this there is some sputum also, okay, and what else? Okay, okay, this is the medicine, give it. Like, so this is Dr. Hanneman. He is asking him that without carefully attending to the symptoms, without understanding the symptoms, how it has developed, what is the characteristic, okay, what how the patient is feeling about it, how the attendants are feeling about it, what you are observing, what the physician is observing about it. Okay, by without the symptoms guiding the in the treatment, because symptoms are the guide towards the remedy. This whole set of symptoms which we take, it is basically the guide towards the remedy. And it is not only in the allopathy. Many homeopaths are also doing like this. If there is an injury, okay, give this arnica, give hypericum, give this thing. No, how this is going to help? Even in that thing, the symptoms have to become your guide. There is a case of someone, I think in Thailand, Dr. Jonkol, she had brought this case to my attention. I think the person had bursitis after an injury in the shoulder, and he was given all kind of medicines which were known for injury, and he was not getting better for this thing. But after carefully understanding his case, I think we gave Calcarea Fos. Dr. Jonkul can be can
Yes, calculate
more
cost.
clearly tell about it. But
Right.
what I can remember is that we gave him Calcarea Fos, and he was better with that. Otherwise, I think he was suffering from past 5 or 6 months from this problem. So
Yes, he have
that is the difference with
neuropathy.
treating the disease and treating the sick. When you're treating the disease, you will end up giving all those remedies for injury, not the remedies for the patient. The difference: remedies for injury, remedies for the patient. Both are different things. Remedy for the jaundice, remedy for the patient. Remedy for the degenerative disease, remedy for the patient. So this part, th- there are no remedies like this in homeopathy. It is just a hit, trial and error method. Sometimes they might hit, most of the times they will miss. Okay, so we have to understand the right way. And once you start understanding and following the right way, you will not need to do hit and error method, try hit and trial method. That okay, let's try with this remedy, try this remedy, try. You will stop trying. You will become very clear that okay, my at least you will try, start understanding which medicines not to give, because you will start understanding that this thing does not fit the picture of the disease. So you will at least know that this medicine is not going to help because it is not this fitting the picture of the patient. So Dr. Henneman is saying that I am very much surprised how it is possible for the physicians at the sick bed to allow themselves to suppose that without most carefully tending to the symptom and be guided by them in the treatment. Because symptoms are the only guide in treating the sick. So how could a physician basically ignore the symptoms? They ought to seek and could discover only in the hidden and unknown interior what there was to be cured in the disease. Okay, the patient is suffering from vomiting and diarrhea. He might have been suffering from infection. How can one know that what is happening inside the hidden interior, the unknown interior? So the physician, the doctor is basically prescribing for the infection which he does not know the patient is having or not having. So what is more conjectural than that? What is more opinion based than that? Today I had a case, a new case of a lady who have been suffering from this regular vomitings and nausea from past 6 years. So initially she was treated by many doctors for the gastric infections. but she didn't get any well. She was being given medicine, the antibiotics and everything for the infection, and she would get amelioration of symptom for few days, and then again they will start. So after 2 years of treatment for the infection, they came to this point. They came to this opinion that she is not suffering from infection after 2 years. So how we can still say that it is not conjectural? This is what Dr. Hahnemann has told us, that we have been treating the patient without even knowing what is happening to the patient, without even knowing. We are working on one theory. If that does not work, then go to the other theory. If that does not work, then go to the third theory. If anything does not work, then tell the patient that, you don't have anything. We are not able to find anything in you, which is wrong. So that is what Dr. Henneman has said. What there was to be cured in the disease, arrogantly and ludicrously pretending that they could. That they have been pretending arrogantly and ludicrously without even knowing what is happening to the patient. They are pretending that they can cure the patient without paying much attention to the symptoms. This lady, she had symptoms of something characteristic about her vomiting and about her nausea. So without paying attention to those characteristics, they have been curing her for past 6 years. Discover the alteration that had occurred in the invisible interior and set it to rights with unknown medicines. So without even paying attention to the symptom, they have come to the conclusion that they have discovered the alteration in the invisible interior, and they are trying to write it with medicines which are unknown. How they are acting, we don't know. And that such a procedure as this could also alone be called radical and rational treatment. And moreover, to put salt on the injury, they call it a rational treatment. What is rational about it? Is not then that which is cognizable by the senses in disease through the phenomena it displays, the disease itself in the eyes of the physician. The eye, there has to be a word eyes. In the eyes of the physician ever, since he never can see the spiritual being that produces the disease, the vital force. That is the problem. Much time of the science has been wasted in trying to understand what is happening in the interior of the body, which is giving rise to the diseases. Many a times the genetic theories have come, many times some organic theories have come, some other kind of things, some this humors, theory of the humors have come. Many theories, some immunorepressant or suppressant theories or depressant theories have come. But no theory, no this thing can basically tell what the wrong has happened inside of the human being. Even till day, most of the causation of the diseases is still idiopathic, that we don't know. We don't know about the uh, real causation of the disease, because we have always been trying to find the causation in the matter. We have been curing the matter with matter, trying to make theories that might be something wrong with the matter, ignoring the spiritual being that produces the disease is the vital force. Nor is it necessary that he should see it. It is not necessary that you should see the vital force or we should see the vital force, but only that he should ascertain its morbid actions. We must know the actions, that whenever the vital force is basically diseased, it basically tells us about the disease state through the symptoms. So the symptoms become basically a projection of the disease of the vital force, a projection of the disease of the interior. That is why Dr. Henneman has told that the symptoms are the most important thing in the patient, and they are the guide to the remedy in order that he may thereby be enabled to cure the disease. What else will the old school search for in the hidden interior of the organism as a prima causa morbi? Whilst they reject as an object of cure and contemptuously despise the sensible manifest representation of the disease, the symptoms that so plainly address themselves to us. So Dr. Hahnemann is saying that the old school, that they are already searching in the hidden interior for this primary cause of the diseases while rejecting what is basically representation of the disease, the symptoms. The symptoms are the representation of the disease. They are the most sensible and manifest representation. They are basically rejecting those symptoms and try to find something in the interior under the microscope, in some MRI, in some CT scan. They are trying to find something which is, in the interior of the body. And even if they find, for example, even if they find, what are we going to do about it? Many times I get these children of Down syndrome. They go through that genetic karyotyping and all those tests and everything, the heart, the thyroid, everything. Okay, thousands of rupees of parents are basically spent in the investigation of a disease which is already known. The doctor already knows that the child is suffering from Down syndrome. That is why he basically has written all those tests. And he has come this beautiful chart of karyotyping with 21st trisomy. There are these three the chromosomes on the 21st, this thing. So we have found that material cause in the interior of the organism in this case. I was talking about this thing that so thousands of the rupees are basically spent of the parents in a disease which a doctor actually has a good idea about, that what the child is suffering from. So then he has found this karyotype. On the karyotype, he has got this three chromosomes at the 21st position. So he has got all the this prima causa morbi, the primary cause of disease, in the material part of the body. So after finding all that causation, even this case, the causation is also found. So when the parents they ask the doctor, doctor, okay, now you know about the disease, you know about what has happened. So what should we do now, like for the treatment or the cure? The doctor is like, there is no cure. We cannot cure. There nothing we can do about it. So what was the fun of finding that prima causa morbi? All that effort which was put to find the causation in the interior, hidden interior of the organism. And when it is found, nothing can be done about it. So what was the fun of doing all that exercise? All that fruitless, useless exercise which the parents were put through. So this is what Dr. Henneman was basically talking against about. That, with this kind of conjecture, this kind of theories, this kind of things which the physicians have wasted their lives in telling the people that how the disease is formed, how it is maintained, or what are the causation for the disease. He said that this all thing is of no use to anyone. What can be useful is that you take those symptoms, you understand those symptoms, you understand the sick patient, and try to do something about it. Try to give some medicine which can help the patient. So all those symptoms, which were basically a sensible manifest representation of the disease, which was an expression of the disease thrown out by the vital force, that was already ignored. But the whole effort was put to find something in the hidden interior of the organism. What else do they wish to cure in the diseases but these? So he's again asking that what else is there to cure in the disease except these symptoms? What else is there? If you just cure these symptoms, all the symptoms are cured from the whole extent of the body. What is left? What is left? Only health is left. That's it. Simple. Sometimes truth is so simple that the human mind it starts rejecting it because of being too simple. Because we love complexities. We cannot believe how it can be so simple. A person who has devoted 20 years, 25 years of his life in finding the causation and this and that and that and that, if he's told after 25 years, that this part, if he's told this footnote that just cure the symptom and the disease will be gone, he will, kind of go into at the verge of insanity that how it can be so simple. Because truth is very simple. So what else do they wish to cure in diseases but this? What is there to cure in the disease except the symptoms which are being produced? What else is there? How a person knows that he is diseased? Because of the symptoms. So once the symptoms are removed, the health automatically establishes itself. So this is the thinking, basic difference in the thinking of a homeopath, how he has to think. Because becoming a homeopath starts from the kind of mentality which you are having, the kind of mentality. Being a homeopath is all about mentality, how you see people, how you see the world, how you see the diseased processes. You have to, are you still seeing them in the matter part, or you have started shifting towards the dynamicity of it? Like I told you that in the first thing, that if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibrations, because actually the universe resides in this thing. Next time, when we will be talking about the vital force and we will reach the aphorism 11, I will tell you about some things which can drastically take your mental. The mind will drastically shift from this, matter part to the energy part. I will give you very small examples which you have been experiencing in day to day life. But because we have been so much pushed into the matter and thinking, which is more material, that we cannot even analyze those things happening to us. Okay. So I with this, I think we will stop with today's class.